am Nicole Khalil, your host of the This Is Woman's Work podcast, where we cover a whole gamut of topics and a whole spectrum of concepts, from business to personal, internal to external, individual to global. If it's relevant to women, we want to talk about it. But I have to tell you, at least initially when we started the podcast, I thought we'd have more of a structure, sort of a formula where we'd do like 25% of our episodes focused on work-oriented topics and 25% would be more self-development and so forth and so on. But we quickly learned that I'm just not that organized, and I didn't want to sacrifice quality of guests and relevance of topics trying to stick to a specific formula. So that quickly went out the window, and now we trust the universe that the right message will come out at the right time. Okay, maybe it's a little more structured than that, but not nearly as much as I thought when we started. Because I've always admired podcasts that commit to a theme each month, or do a series, or even seasons where they explore a topic deeply and thoroughly before moving on to the next topic. And again, friend, life is just too chaotic for that, at least for me. So we talk about what we talk about when we talk about it. But this might be as close as it's going to get to a theme, because we've done a few episodes in a row about two of the most popular behavioral profiles, the Enneagram and human design. So we'll call it a mini-series, if you will, before we get back to our organized chaos. And I got to tell you, I find tools like human design fascinating. It's always shocking to me to see how accurate they can be, and how taking the time to self-reflect and to get to know myself better, to learn more about who I am and who I'm not, how investing that time into myself always makes me better. And you know I'm maniacally committed to you building your confidence, which includes knowing who you are at an intimate level. So I want to dive deeper into human design in hopes that you leverage this tool to spend more time with you, because you are also fascinating. So I've invited Emma Dunwoody, human design expert, master coach, behavioral specialist, and host of the #1 global human design podcast, to be our guest. She wakes people up to the power within them using her unique method of transformational human design, a system of self-knowledge and guidance unlike anything else that exists. Her vision is to take human design mainstream, as she believes it will transform personal development, education, and business forever. Emma wants to inspire everyone to unlock their inner wisdom, take their power back, and feel deeply confident, which we both agree on, in the decisions they make, creating a population that values themselves and courageously lives their truth. So, Emma, thank you so much for being our guest. Let me say that first.
Well, thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Amazing. And I said this before we hit record, but we just had Karen Curry Parker on the show. Friend, that's episode 227 if you haven't listened to it yet. So I want to make sure not to ask you the same questions I asked her, but rather to build off of some of what she shared, so our listeners can go deeper with their human design chart. Does that work for you?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, great. So just so you know, Karen gave us a high-level overview of human design, a bit about its history and the tool itself, and how it helps us to learn about our own unique energy needs, and a bit about how that helps us in our personal relationships, just so you kind of have a background of what we've done. So I have some questions, but before I get into those, is there anything you want to make sure to share about human design in general? Anything to add, or you think that's imperative for us to know before we move on any further?
Well, I love this question because when I was doing my own research before coming on your podcast, I was listening to you being interviewed and talking all about confidence. And one of the things that I hear over and over again is people always say to me, "Oh my goodness, you are so confident." And I've always said, well, at least for the last 5 years, I've said, it's not that I'm confident. I just know myself. I know who I am. I trust myself. I'm just the most authentic version of myself. And I've always attributed that to, running my human design experiment and, completely transforming myself and therefore my life. And then to hear you talk all about confidence and the definition of confidence, I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is exactly on the same page. So I feel like, just having a very small window into your work, human design really is the thing that gives us, and I'm going to say fast track because I'm a manifesting generator, the fast track to authenticity, to confidence, to really knowing, trusting, and loving ourselves.
I love that. And that's, I think, maybe why I'm so enamored by human design is it gives the opportunity. It's sort of that external thing that helps you go more internal, right? I often use the expression in coaching, it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle. And what I
Yeah.
mean is like when we're in it, when we're in the chaos of life and decision making and all the things that we do and all the people we serve in so many different ways, it's sort of hard to take that step back and see ourselves clearly.
Yeah.
And human design, I think, really helps do that.
Well, look, 100%. And I think one of the things to understand is, we are 95% of our behavior is unconscious, right? So we can't change anything that we're not consciously aware of. And, I've for many years focused on performance, on leadership, on transformation, on all of these things. And the first job is to become conscious of the unconscious. And what human design helps us do is exactly that, but in such a specific way that's so unique to us, so that all of a sudden we're actually, I like to say we are languaging what we feel on the inside. Like human design is the words to all of these feelings that we've been unable to actually articulate in many cases for most of our lives.
That makes sense. That's how it feels. It's like this, it gets me. Like, this is what I've been feeling or thinking all along. And all of a sudden now I have words for it or a framework for it. Now, Emma, I can't imagine it's just me, but when I get information like you do from the human design, I think there's a tendency to sort of go automatically to how that shows up in our relationships and how it shows up in our work. Very
Hmm.
quickly we take it and think about how that plays out in our external things. Is that a good way to go, or is there any value to trying to stay focused on you and you? I guess what I'm asking is when you get your human design chart, where is maybe the best place to start, or how do we begin to interact with it?
Great question. And people ask me this all the time. Like we've done an entire roadmap series on the podcast just to answer this question. And I think one of the big things to understand is your human design is actually going to tell you how specifically to start experimenting with your human design. From a behavioral perspective, one of the things that I think is important is having a look at how it shows up in your, let's say, your business or your relationships, because you actually want to give your brain the evidence. You want to look to the past and see where you've already been expressing your human design. Now, yes, you've probably been expressing it from fear and conditioning and maybe the more unresourceful expressions. However, once you can identify it, then you can start to work with it and improve it. So I think one of the big things, the big messages that I talk a lot about is it's all well and good to go and learn this complex and huge, wealth of knowledge that is human design. But if you can't get it from the head to the body, then what's the point? So it's very much about taking your human design piece by piece and experimenting with it, like showing up in your life with it every single day, starting with strategy, starting with authority, understanding, well, I've learned the knowledge, but what does it mean specifically for me? And how can I be more in alignment? How can I notice it more in my everyday life? Because the more we actually take imperfect action, the more we actually learn and then embody, that's how we get the most out of aligning to our design. I mean, it's how we get the most out of anything, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it aligns perfectly with what I know to be true about building confidence. The way you build confidence is through action, right? We can't think or hope or fingers or and toes cross our way into it. We got to put ourselves out there. We got to take the risks. We have to have the conversations. We got to test it out in our day-to-day lives. So I love that. With we talked a little bit more about personal relationships on the last episode. I'd like to talk a little bit more about career and purpose as it
Yeah.
relates to human design in our conversation today. So, what can human design tell us about our purpose and our careers? Let me just ask that general question first.
So a lot, simple answer. I teach a lot of purpose and business. And what I have learned, really working in alignment with my design, is that you're knowing your human design and running that experiment and then taking that into your business and into your career. It gives you the confidence to break the rules, to realize that so many of the models that have been taught to you, so many of the rules, the systems, the strategies, they just don't apply to you. And it gives you the framework in which you can actually operate from. So let me give you an example. When I first started my business, I was running, actually had a nanny agency first, but let's say my coaching business. When I started my coaching business, I had been taught, I'd learned not only where I had done all my master coach study, but over the 3 years, they also help us with business. So I've taken all of these strategies and I've worked really hard to implement those strategies. Now, it was exhausting to implement those strategies on so many levels. There were a bunch of them and I'm like, this does not feel right for me. But I did it anyway because I'm a good coach and I'm very coachable. So I implemented the things that I had to implement. So I started and I built the business and I had wins. Don't get me wrong, I had wins, but I was exhausted and so much of it felt clunky and out of alignment. So as soon as human design came in, then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm just going to run my experiment. I just started with strategy and authority. And within days, things changed. Within days, my business pivoted. The name of my podcast changed just by following my strategy and authority. Over the coming weeks, my clients were getting more and more aligned results. They're experiencing more ease, more flow, and so am I. And now where I sit, many years on, I've been in business now in my coaching business since 2015, and I implemented human design in 2018. And since then, my business has just gone from strength to strength. And as I'm teaching business, I'm not teaching my community, this is how you succeed. I'm teaching my community, this is how you access the answers for how you succeed. Because ultimately, that's the truth. The truth is we all have our very own unique path. And human design is going to give us the tools to do the clunky version in the beginning with great success. And then the more we experiment with our human design, the deeper we go, the more nuances, we can get very specific. I mean, I know my core talent, the number one thing that I'm here to do on the planet is to help people with breakthroughs, to simplify and to trust my insights. Like, this is my number one core talent. But I also understand that my brand, my life's work is about community and building these really, really profound communities. And I mean, I could go on, but so we can start with a very high macro, experiment, and as we get further into our design, we get right down into the minutiae of the deepest, most specific things of our purpose.
It reminds me of a quote that I have on my website, and it says, "The only place I'm interested in leading you is back to yourself." And that's what I think is popped up in my head as you were talking, that the human design does and that you're doing as a coach and a trainer, is not saying, this is how you do it. This is your opportunity to understand who you are and how you work best and your unique abilities and talents and superpowers. And when you know that and bring that to the table, it's not that things are easy, but they just make more sense.
Well, I do love the word easy. It actually, about 3 years ago, we implemented that with part of our yearly planning. Easy was one of our focal goals. And I do believe things get easier when you're in alignment. You experience a lot more flow, a lot more ease, because the truth is you go down the correct path for you the first time, instead of after, climbing 7 mountains that are the wrong mountains, then you finally find the right one for you. So, and I think the other thing to say is that, the definition of easy, if you're someone who perhaps is, you think the world is happening to you, then easy looks like you not doing anything, you not getting out of your comfort zone. But easy for me is that every single time I step out of my comfort zone, I reach for something, I move towards growth, I back myself, even though my ego is like, no, don't do it. I know that I'm going to get caught. So that's easy for me. That's what I think is easy. It's easy for me to take the risk. It's easy for me to step out of my comfort zone. It's easy for me to follow what feels correct for me, even though my inner critic is telling me something different or society is telling me something different.
I love that. That's incredible. And I like the reframing of easy there. You mentioned our strategy and authority. That's something that the human design shows us. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and what that means and
Yeah.
how we look at that when we think about our careers?
Yeah, sure. So, when you first come to human design, these are really the first two things that you want to experiment with. Many people come to human design and they want to dive deep into all the details. And I highly recommend that you don't do that straight off the bat because it is complex. There's a lot of information, and then you just put your brain into overwhelm, which is a lack of clarity. What you really want to be doing is you want to just be practicing with the most fundamental parts of your design, which is your strategy, which is kind of how the universe guides you. Okay. You're going to know your strategy by your type. Okay. So a manifester is to initiate and inform. A generator is to respond. A manifesting generator is to respond and inform. A projector is to wait for the invitations. And the reflector is to wait 28-day moon cycle. So you have your strategy and you start to work with it. Okay. So I'm a manifesting generator. So I'm always in response. So I might have an idea. So my podcast is the perfect example. I'm in the shower, having no idea at the time that my gift is insights. This insight drops in that I need to change the name of my podcast. It's mental energy. I can't act on it. I need something external of me. So I just write it down. The next day, I'm on the phone to one of my mentors, and he directly says to me, "You need to do a podcast on human design." Now, my inner critic's going, yelling at me, "You don't know anything. Who are you? Imposter syndrome, all the things." But my gut, my sacral was like, "Yep." And my authority, which I'll get to in a minute, was like, "Yep." So I just did it. I didn't think about it. I just followed my strategy. Then our other part, this authority piece, that's our internal decision. Okay. It's our internal wisdom, our internal guidance system. So we have emotional authority, which they have to wait for clarity. Then we have sacral authority, which is a knowing in the moment. Yes, I have energy for this. No, I don't. Gut response. Then we have splenic, which is you, which is this intuitive knowing. You know, you just know. You don't know why you know or how you know, you just know. Then we have ego authority, self directed authority, mental projectors or mental authority, and the 28-day cycle. These are all what we call sounding boards. It's a process of speaking out. So, whatever your specific energy is, and there's nuances for each, it's speaking it out until you hear the correct thing for you. So, when we work with our strategy and our authority, and we can just work with that because our strategy and authority is always guiding us to alignment with our design. So it's almost like we don't need to know the nuances as long as we're running that experiment, as long as we're doing that. So we can take that into our business. We can I mean, I've worked with so many leaders that just use that as their primary leading tool, if you like. And of course, they have huge results, not only for themselves, but for their team. Because it's just ultimately your strategy and authority are wanting to lead you to the path of least resistance, the most aligned path. So, yeah, experimenting with those, getting to know those is the best place to start.
We've talked a lot about personality styles and motivators, and I think we'd all agree that who we are and how we make decisions impacts literally every aspect of our lives, and that includes our finances. Think about it for a minute. It might not be the money that's in your accounts or the income that you make that's determining your financial situation or your financial future. It's you. And if you're not aware of your financial type, well, friend, it's likely your unconscious mind that's in the driver's seat of your financial decisions. So here's what you need to do right now. Press pause, go to Amazon, and search for the book Finding Your Financial Type by Chantel Bonneau, CFP, and add it to your cart and check out. You need to know your financial type as well as that of anyone you make financial decisions with. And finding your financial type will help you do just that, along with providing some actionable tools to increase your financial awareness and knowledge. Again, Finding Your Financial Type is the book. Amazon is the easiest place to get it. And knowing your financial type is the next best step towards you taking action for your financial future. And now that you've done that, let's head back to the show. I'm going to say something and you tell me if I'm wildly off base, but the human design won't tell you like, oh, you hate your job if you're not already aware of it, or that you should change careers or what you should do. But it might help you understand why you're not happy at your current job if you're not happy, or why you love your job if you love it, or might leave you some breadcrumbs of what you could do or should do based on your purpose. Is what I said fair, or am I off base?
No, it's absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. The thing it's going to tell you is what is correct for you, what your energy is designed to do in an authentic, perfect world. Okay. In human design, we call it, in the unhomogenized way of being. So instead of your conditioned way of being, the person you learnt you had to be to receive love, nurturing, and belong, your human design is the most authentic version of you. So my background is profiling. So you mentioned Enneagram. I've used Myers-Briggs. I've used disc profiling, all sorts of different profiling tools. And the thing with these profiling tools is that we have to answer questions to get the output. Now, when we answer questions, that means we have to go via the mind. When we go via the mind, we are just answering questions as to who we think we are. But we don't really know. Like there's a gap. We've got cognitive dissonance. Who we think we are and who we really are two very different things. Our human design, in my opinion, sits below the behavior. It sits below the personality. Although we do talk about personality on one half of our chart, it's the energy waiting to be expressed. And then we express it either through, simply put, love or fear, but these very specific themes within us. So once we start to experiment with our design, then we can really see how things, or why things don't work and why things do work. For example, one of the things I really wrestled with early on in business was consistency, because I had been taught the masculine definition of consistency, which we're all taught, by the way, which means that we need to be able to do the same thing every day. Okay. It's like if you're consistent or you're in integrity, then it means you do the same action in your business every day. Now, the energetic cycle for the masculine is 24 hours. The energetic cycle for women is 28 days. Now, I'm also a manifesting generator, which means I'm a non-linear being. So again, there's more inconsistency. I'm also an emotional authority, which gives me even more, like I'm constantly in this wave. So there's all these things that are innately me that don't fit into this 24-hour, do the same thing every day cycle. So that led me to ask myself a better question. Okay, well, consistency is the key to success. So where in my life have I been consistent my way? So then all of a sudden I reflect on my childhood. I competed in equestrian sport. I still do to this day. And I had huge amounts of success. But did I do the same thing every day? Did I train the same way every day, every week, every month? No, I didn't. But I still had the success. I still did really, really well. So then I could start to see where, hang on a second, I'm a sprinter. My energy works in bursts. So this is a really high level example, but then I could bring that into my business. I could bring that into my career. So your human design is going to give you really clear ways that you're like, okay, I'm out of alignment over here, but what does it look like for me? What is true for me? And then follow that more authentic path.
Such a great example. I've actually coached several women who were working in environments that favored the marathon mentality. And we really had to work. And I wish I would have had the human design. We probably would have gotten there a lot faster. But with the concept of they were sprinters, that's
Mm.
how they worked best. And they created very consistent growth and success doing it that way. But it was so contrary to the messaging they were getting from their mentors and their leaders, and really everywhere you look. I don't want to turn the episode into one about me, but I want to throw one out there that I am a little bit curious about. I am a projector, which
Mm-hmm.
means I wait for the invitation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a business owner, and everything you're taught about business is like, you got to get after it, right? Like, you got to do outreach every single day. You've got to be on social media. You got to be, doing all the things, all the asking, putting yourself out there on a very, very, very regular basis. And when I found out that I'm a projector and that I wait for the invitation, it was like the heavens opened up, the light shone through, light bulbs went off. Like, I finally was like, yes, that is what is going on. But I do struggle with sort of navigating that or collaborating that, if you will, with being a business owner who needs to generate business? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I love this question. In human design, I think sometimes we really let projectors down. We tell them, you just got to sit around and wait for the invitation. That is so far from the truth. The truth is, it's crazy. I love, again, that I took the time to actually listen to you being interviewed, because a lot of what you talk about with confidence is exactly what projectors need to understand, because it's actually about developing your wisdom. Okay, because projectors are here to guide. They're here to they can see efficiencies that others can't see. Is energy, is the system, are the things being done well? Where can they be improved? Now, waiting for the invitation is all about waiting for the opportunity to be invited in to demonstrate that wisdom. But that doesn't mean you have to sit around and wait. That means that you need to obsess about the thing you love. Because as a projector, you love something and you want to go deep on it. You want to understand it. You want to get in and out of the nuances, and you just love the thing. In fact, you probably want to build your own system. You want to build, and this is how you do it. Now, in so many cases, the way that we see projectors really demonstrate their wisdom is either through sharing the things they love on things like a podcast, because you're actually just putting your wisdom out there, right? So as you put your wisdom out there, people want more. They want to ask you for it. They invite it in. But there are some other ways that I think are really powerful. I have this example of a client in the past that was in sales, okay? And a lot of people in human design would say, well, projectors don't belong in sales. But this projector absolutely smashed it out of the park in sales. Because instead of sitting there in front of a client and saying, we can do this and I can do that and I know this and I know that, even though this person did, they sat there and asked the best questions. Because projectors understand the nuances, they ask great questions because they have a depth of understanding that a lot of other people don't. So as they ask these questions, the business owner in this case would sit across from this person and be like, wow, for you to ask those questions, you've got great, I want to know your solutions. So being a projector, it's very much about developing your wisdom, having the opportunity to talk about your wisdom just from a place of love with no attachment to, well, I'm putting it out there to get something in return. You got to let that go as a projector. Just share what you love, ask incredible questions because that's what you guys are good at, and then just watch people have to invite you in.
So thank you for that. And I hope people listening in are getting a sense of how incredible the wisdom of the human design is. Because if you know anything about me, you know everything she just said spoke directly to my experience. I mean, even recently, I used to call the podcast a passion project because I love it. It is the most me thing that I get to do. But I always kind of had it as this thing I did on the side. And at the end of last year, I made the conscious decision to really invest myself fully into the podcast as my number one priority. And I have no agenda, but it is incredible to see how much the podcast has grown and how many invitations have stemmed from it on things that I was working so hard on before, and it felt like a grind. And now it's coming to me. So yes, yes, and yes. And I have to ask you, you have a quote that I read in preparation for this episode that I just love. You said, your purpose isn't something you do, it's something you already are. Tell us about that as it relates to human design.
So this directly relates to my own experience. I know that my hero's journey, my purpose was kicked in 20 years ago when I was diagnosed with depression and panic disorder. Most of us talk about purpose as this, beautiful, amazing level, high level, wow, it's all pretty and sunshine and rainbows, but it's not. It's this journey that we go on through life. Okay. Now, in human design, there's a specific area in our chart that I often look to for our purpose. There's many things that we look at for purpose, but we can look at our nodes, let's say, in human design. And this is this journey. It's this hero's journey that we're going to go from the south node to the north node. For me, I've got the gate 20 to the gate 34. And when I actually dive into this part of my chart, I actually see this journey that I've taken. Like, very simply, my gate 20 is the gate of the now. In its shadow, you're unable to be in the present moment and connected to source. Depression, panic disorder, that's basically what's happening, right? Then I go on this journey as Emma and I discover who I am. I learn. I learn about human behavior, quantum physics, neuroscience. I shift from the advertising industry into coaching. I do all of these things. I go on this journey. Then 2015, I sign up to become a master coach and I go into this 3-year program. By 2018, human design arrives. By 2024, I'm now one of the leading human design experts, but I don't feel like I work. I don't feel like I work. I feel like I get to do what I love all day, every day, and talk to incredible humans and help people completely transform their lives. Our purpose is the journey we go on to become ourselves. Our purpose is all the times we fall down and we get back up. It's the lessons. It's the really building that confidence that you talk about, like really being willing to take risks because I don't know how or where or when, but I know I'm going to be able to handle it. And I know it's going to be better than this on the other side. So our purpose is so much bigger than, I so wanted a statement, purpose statement. I am this. This is my purpose. And honestly, my purpose is just to be me, like just to be the best version of me. And all the things that I discover about me, all the things that I learn about me, that I grow, my skills, my lessons, I just want to go and take them to the world. I want to, I'm a line 5 like you. I've got a line 5 in my profile. I just want to universalize it. I want to have an impact. I want to take everything I've learned and experienced and give it to everybody else. Your purpose is the journey of becoming this best version of you. And it doesn't end until we tap out, So we're on purpose becoming the best version of ourselves. And human design is like the best treasure map to access the treasure that lies within you.
That was filled with many mic drop moments. So I hope you rewind and listen to that several times. It was so good. Emma, I know people are going to want to dive into human design. And as you mentioned, it can be really overwhelming and there are great ways to kind of do this. So first, I want to let people know to go to emmadunwoody.com. You can get your chart for free there. And then her podcast will actually help you dive through your chart and kind of your next steps based on what you get back from your chart. So I might not be saying that very well. Emma, do you want to say something better about that?
Sure. So you did a great job. You just need to go to my website, emmadunwoody.com, get your free chart. And when you get your free chart, we actually will send you not all at once, just drip feed you emails that will send you to the correct podcast for your, let's say, type, for your profile, for your authority, so that you can slowly unpack your design at your own pace with really simple guidelines of how specifically to do that.
I know I'm going to do that. And the links will all be in show notes as well as the link to the podcast and everything like that. Emma, thank you. This has been a phenomenal conversation.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
It has been my pleasure. Okay, let me close out by saying that my goal in doing this series of episodes was about you increasing your self-awareness, sure, but also your self-acceptance and your self-appreciation. It's about building your confidence because confidence is all about trusting yourself, which requires you to build a deep, intimate relationship with all the things you are and are not, and it invites you to embrace yourself just as you are. Because, let me say it again, you are fascinating. There has never been another you in history, and there will never be another you again, which makes you fucking magical in my mind. To steal the words from Dr. Seuss, today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive that is youer than you. So be and become more you. As Emma said, our purpose is the journey we go on to become ourselves. And I say that is woman's work.